being the local experts in, as a tourism and hospitality company, that we want people who stay with us to, feel like they're getting a good local experience, that we're, like they mentioned, providing local supplies, local touches. If they have questions about, hey, like, what's going on this weekend? What can I do? We have like a list of events, different recommendations, festivals, whatnot, that we know because we're here. We're not, in a different state. Like, we are based here. We're passionate about this community. So, we've really embraced that, and, it's something we're pretty serious about.
You found the Real Estate Law Podcast, because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. If you're a real estate professional or looking to build real estate expertise, then welcome to the conversation and discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com.
Hello. It's the Real Estate Law Podcast. Thank you again for listening to us. Jason Muth here with attorney broker Rory Gill from Next Home Titletown Real Estate and Urban Village Legal in Boston. Rory, we're talking to my conference buddies who are some of the best co-hosts in the country for short-term rentals, and we're going to learn everything about what it's like to run a really legitimate, big co-hosting business like they have.
I know, Jason, you're excited to take another deep dive into short-term rentals. And for those of you watching at home, Jason every week has a different background behind him of a different short-term rental that we're operating. But our number is a lot smaller compared to these guys and what they're the number that they're operating. And they take a little bit of a different angle in the short-term rental space than we do. So Jason, do you want to introduce your conference buddies?
Yes, I will introduce my conference buddies. So I've met these guys at 2 conferences. They must think that I go to all these conferences, or I think they go to all these conferences. We can kind of commiserate together. Maybe we just end up going to the same conferences and bumping into each other. We had an excellent conversation at Bigger Pockets out in San Diego last year, and then we were just at the STR Wealth Conference in Nashville. I monopolized way too much of their time. I tagged along for dinner. I think we had a couple too many cocktails one night, Mark. Is that right?
Definitely right. Yeah.
That is accurate. So, well, see, I left early because we were out at dinner right near where I was staying, and then you kept going out. So
yeah.
But without further ado, let me introduce the guys from Host Pros. They are based in Ohio. They serve the greater Cleveland area and all the great surrounding towns, including some really good vacation markets that you might not know about as a listener if you're somewhere else in the country. This is Mark Vondrak and Dave Stokley from Host Pros. Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast.
Yeah, good morning, Jason. Thanks for having us. Great to catch up again.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. You're like top of the list guests I wanted to have on this podcast. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, maybe they actually didn't mind the time I spent with them at the podcast at the conference because they actually want to record with us again, which is great. So, yeah, we ran into each other in San Diego like the last day of the conference, and we talked for a couple hours that night. And I really learned how deep your business was throughout Ohio. You're a local operators, you live in the community where you are, you're not franchising or syndicating, and you've grown this thing, Host Pros, really, I don't know, in our opinion, quietly to this big monster short-term rental co-hosting business that you're doing just with, you're not doing it with as much fanfare as people on the podcast circuit and, at the conferences might lead you to believe, because, if you hear all of the people and the prognosticators online, and we're all following a lot of the same people, they're just kind of always there. They're on your feed all the time. They're just spitting information, somewhat accurate. But you guys are the real deal. Like, you've been doing this for a long time, and you have a big business.
Yeah, I mean, for Mark and I, it's always been about building a lifestyle that we want. Neither of us have ever wanted to be billionaires or be, social media personalities or influencers or anything like that. We just want to build a successful business and provide valuable service for our clients. And that's all what it's always been about for us. So, we are like building social media and stuff like that, but mainly just to better serve our clients and our guests. So it's always fun to go to those conferences and listen to the influencers and hear what they have to say. And there's always good stuff to take away. But I think for both me and Mark, like, we get a charge out of building a successful business and just having success on the ground doing what we do.
Mm-hmm. Were those the last 2 conferences you've been to?
Those are the only two conferences we've been to, believe it or not. So.
All right, so this is my theory. I call it the Boston market theory. Did you guys used to have Boston market? Where you?
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay.
Love Boston market.
So back where I grew up, outside New York City, every so often we go to Boston market, like every so often, not that frequently. And go there with my father, pick up dinner, and my neighbor was always there. Like he wasn't working there; he was just always there. And there were plenty of other places to eat, but he just happened to always be there. So in my mind, he's always there. However, here's the flip side of that. Perhaps we just are on the same schedule and we're both always there at the same time. He might think that I'm always there, and I know I'm not always there. So I see you guys as, oh yeah, these big conference mavens. They go to all the conferences. They bought, and it just happened to be the two that we both signed up for, are the two that we went to. So,
yep. But I'm sure there'll be more.
There will be more. Yeah. I want to learn more about Host Pros and how you guys came together. I know you told me the story in person. I'd love for you to tell our audience, how you guys found each other. I thought maybe you were lifelong friends or people that grew up or went to college together, but that's not the case.
Yeah, not really. I can take this one, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark and I met through a local young professionals networking group in 2015, I think, right around the time that we both bought our first investment properties. I am a product of the Grant Cardone podcast. That's how I got into real estate. But we both bought multifamilies here in Cleveland as house hacks, where we both bought, we were going to live in them and rent out the other units. And we just started talking and realized we kind of had the same goals. And so we ended up buying a 4-unit property together in 2017, and we were rehabbing that property. And Mark had been renting out, I think, a room in his apartment on Airbnb, and we just kind of said, let's throw 1 or 2 of these up on Airbnb and see what happens. And those were the days when you could, furnish something cheaply, throw it up on Airbnb, and make a ton of money. And we did.
The first one we literally furnished as cheap as you could furnish it with, like, my buddy was moving from Cleveland to Utah, and he was getting he wasn't taking all the stuff with him. So anything he left, we put in this apartment. It was like, we just patched it together.
Like a Frankenstein of furniture. We still see. I mean, those are perfect targets for you guys to actually improve their businesses. When you see that, you must be like, oh my God, I got to call this owner.
Yeah, for sure. And we can talk about furnishing. I was listening to your podcast with the guy from Vegas talking about furnishing, and he was talking about how he still uses Craigslist and Facebook. I was like, no, not for me. But
I was surprised by that also. But I mean, did you see his properties?
I did not see the properties yet.
All right,
no.
You got to check them out. They are sick. They're really, really good properties. It just seems like a lot of work to be doing that. I mean, Craigslist and Facebook, and then you're dealing with, random people who want to negotiate with you, and you got to pick it up yourself. I mean, if you got a team of people to do it, maybe it still works.
Yeah, he did mention he had designers and stuff, so I guess that works. But anyway, so we threw 2 of these units up on Airbnb, and we're making a lot of money with them, but it's a lot of work, as you know, to manage these things yourself. And so we just started building systems and implementing technology until we got to the point where we had what we thought was a service model that we could sell to other investors as a management company. And so we started doing that in 2019. We incorporated Host Pros January 2019, I think, and signed our first client soon after. Funny story on the furnishing side there. This guy was from California, and I volunteered to coordinate the furnishing for him. And so he bought most of the stuff, gave me his credit card too, and I bought some stuff. But I charged him $500 per unit to furnish entire apartments for him. And that's a mistake I'll never make again. But, first client, so it was worth it. It's part of the grind. Got us in the door and got the company started. So, and from there, honestly, it's just grown like crazy. We're up to about 60 units right now. We own 11 of those, I think. And we've got 4 full-time employees and, a dozen cleaners and a bunch of other handymen and service people that we work with. That's the short version.
Before we go too far down the STR road, for those of us that were familiar with it, could you just clarify? I know you're describing it somewhat, but could you just clarify what co-hosting means? Because it's a term I think that we're going to be using a lot through the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, for us, co-hosting means, in our case, we do everything. So the properties are listed on our Airbnb profile. We do all the guest communication, check-in, check-out, restocking supplies, coordinating maintenance, snow removal, landscaping. Our goal is to do everything for our clients. But basically, I guess what it means in a nutshell is someone else owns the property and we do all the work for a percentage of the income. So the reason we like that business model when we were getting started is because there's basically no overhead and no risk for us, only upside for us. That's how we started to think about it, at least.
It sounds like you did this with some level of intention. I feel like a lot of people fall into co-hosting unintentionally, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, we were, at the time, friends and family were asking us about this and curious about it. But yeah, it was always very intentional, I think, to at least see what was out there. Any business kind of starts with like, let's take on a couple clients and see how it goes and see if there's potential. We didn't know what the margins were going to be. We didn't know if it was a financially viable business. This is 2019. There was certainly nobody in Cleveland doing it. I think bigger markets, Florida, California, maybe had people doing co-hosting, but there's nobody doing it in Cleveland. And so we started out charging 15%. We're now charging 25%. A lot of other things have changed too. So.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows you that first mover advantage is real in a business like this and in lots of businesses. But, if nobody else is doing it and there was a need, you guys filled that hole and now you have competitors, I'm sure, but you have a lead on them by having done it for so long. So let me ask this question to Mark. I've seen you guys together and I think I know the answer to this question, but how would you say that you complement one another so you're not stepping on one another's toes and you each kind of have your own lane of what you're good at?
Yeah, that's a really good and important question when you're working with a business partner. I mean, I guess it's in any relationship, it's good to know your strengths and the other person's strengths and the other person's weaknesses. So, yeah, we both have quite different personalities and quite different things that we enjoy doing. So I don't know if you're familiar with the book Traction, but they talk about the integrator and the visionary. So we're like a perfect example of that. So Dave is definitely the visionary. He's the guy coming up with all the ideas. Like if we're hanging out or doing something, he's got 15, 20 different business ideas that some of are pretty nuts. But one or two of them are good. So, I mean, and that's all you need. It's just like, so my job is kind of just let him get all of that out. Just like get it out because there's going to be one good one. So like, he's definitely the visionary and, I'm the integrator between the two of us. So from Dave bringing all the ideas, then I say, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Here's what we need to do to make it happen. Here's a timeline. Here's a budget. Here's a plan. Here's what we need to do to implement this into our business. And so, yeah, we've followed that pretty religiously, just really sticking to, what we're good at and staying kind of within those lines. Not to say that I don't have any ideas and not to say that Dave can't implement or integrate, there, but, for the vast majority of things, that's kind of how it goes.
Like when you think of that idea, Dave's like, you're not the idea guy. You don't have any ideas. Just do this. Talk a bit about trust and when did you guys realize that you trusted each other to form this company? Because I know that people that are listening to this are looking for lots of different ways to grow their real estate businesses or their investment businesses. And, a lot of that involves trusting somebody else, either with their money or with their time or with their partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We probably rushed into it, but, we became friends. Well, I think we immediately connected because right around the time that we met, we'd both bought our first investment properties. And so we just started talking about goals and visions for our future and our lifestyle and stuff. And we were very aligned in terms of that. And so, we bought this property together and put a lot of money into it together. And that was probably risky, but we'd known each other for like a year and a half. So that's, longer than a lot of people know each other before they get married these days. My wife is really into Love is Blind right now. I don't know if anyone else is watching that.
Yeah.
But,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Seriously?
I just think it's ridiculous, of course. I mean, not saying that she's really bought into it, but like, I don't know. So yeah, we knew each other for 18 months, and I think it's really important to have at least other people that you can work together with and bounce ideas off. For me, obviously, as an idea person, and nobody can do it all themselves, right? So, even if you're a solopreneur, at some point, if you want to grow to a certain point, you're going to have to trust people in some way, whether it's hiring employees or taking on a business partner or investors. It's funny, I was talking to a successful businesswoman last week and telling her a little about our company and investment strategy, and she's like, ooh, business partners. Like, I would never partner with anyone on any business. I'm like, that's the whole reason we're here, right? Because we have the complementary skills to get us here. So, I mean, some people can do it on their own. That's great. But, if you want to accomplish great things, you need other people. Being business partner is just one way of doing that. So,
Aside from just partners, I think you need to build out a team beyond just the partnership that can really get things done. And I'm going to take a guess here and stop me if I'm wrong, but when you first started the business, I imagine you were involved very intimately day to day with everything that was going on. And over time, you found ways to delegate the routine responsibilities and to build systems instead of doing it all yourselves. But that I'm always fascinated by that process where people extricate themselves from the day to day and then start to work on higher and higher level things. Could you talk about how that process looked for your company? And if my guess is wrong, just tell me that.
Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, we're pretty involved from the beginning. However, I think like we were pretty intentional from the beginning, even when we just had a first handful of units, that we knew long term we didn't want to be totally in the weeds and totally in the day to day, that we wanted to scale this, that we wanted to be able to focus on the higher level things from the beginning. So we did do a lot of the stuff, but we from the beginning we hired cleaners to help us because we knew we are not good cleaners. So we're not clean. We really didn't clean much at the beginning, but yeah, as we started building up and getting going, we kept recognizing, okay, like, all right, we need help here. So like, how do we get ourselves out of this, and what is the best organizational structure to manage these kind of tasks or things we have to do. And I think we've tried to look like further ahead than where we're right at. So we say, like, at the beginning, okay, we have two units, but what happens when we have 10? And we try to build those systems, and we started using like system like Guesty from very early, even when we had like 2 or 3 units, and using their automated messaging and using the channel manager there, just because we knew that if we started it early, it'll help us as to grow and get to 10 units, 15, 20, 30. And rather than, okay, let's do everything manually from the beginning, and then when we get to 20 units, we can use the ST. And so we're pretty intentional from the beginning that, let's use some automation, let's use some technology, let's outsource things that we're not good at, and be willing to pay for those things, like handy people, cleaning people, the snow removal, landscaping, like, hey, there's people that are a lot better than us at some of that stuff and can take it off our plate so that we can focus on building the business.
Talk a little bit about your own units and how they factor into all of this. Like, are they technically clients of Host Pros and they just work through all your systems, or do you have that all set up separately?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, essentially they are clients of Host Pros. Yeah. So they work the exact same way. There's really no difference in how that works.
They're technically arbitrage clients, right, Mark? Host Pros pays rent to our holding company. So we're not paying, the holding company is not paying a fee for the management there. It's just like Host Pros keeps the difference.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys use these properties at all? The ones that you own?
Not really. We should a little bit. The one would be nice to use sometimes. But honestly, no, we don't really use them. They're strictly investment properties.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we're the flip side of that. Like, we have our 5 units that we own and operate, and we use all of them. I mean, this one I'm not supposed to be using really. I mean, I'm here for a maintenance day, but we have a DSCR loan on this one, and we don't intend to be occupying this place. I mean, we will pop up here every so often, but Rory and I were just talking last night because I came up yesterday just for a maintenance overnight, and I'm assembling Adirondack chairs yesterday and just doing lots of things myself that you guys probably sub out at this point. And I was telling Rory, I'm like, I just don't feel connected to this property as much as the other ones because we haven't spent enough time here. But, like, I think the way I said it was, I know every inch of every one of the other properties we have. Like, I know them all. I know the sounds. I know where things tick. This one, I'm like still figuring it out because I haven't really been here that much. But I'd have to think a little differently if I operated the way you guys operate. You're not really on site. You're not occupying the properties. You know them because they're clients of yours. It's your job to know them. But, they just kind of behave a little differently in your lives.
Yeah, I mean, there are actually properties that we've managed for a couple years now that I've never been in because that's not my job. It's not my job to know these properties inside and out. And so I think Mark's probably been in most, if not all of them, and then we have guest experience and quality control people whose job it is to do those things.
Yeah. You guys are really elevating yourself up to the next level of your business, like, where you're not the day-to-day people, but you are the day-to-day people to an extent. I mean, like, if you just said Mark is in the properties, like, he's seen them, he's walked them, but it's not his plan to go run over the property if, somebody else can handle whatever the issue is. But I'm sure that you guys are willing to do that type of stuff if you have to.
Yeah, for sure. It's our company, so
right.
It's important to us that it's successful, and so we definitely pick up and help out when we need to.
Let's talk about Host Pros and the community in which you're operating. I say Cleveland and the greater area, the greater metropolitan area. How are you embedded into the community? I know, Dave, you seem like you've been on boards and you go to events and you meet people, and you're one of the faces of the business. Like, what has the experience of being part of the greater business community been like? How have you guys been treated as operators? And what are some tactics and strategies that you might give to other operators that really want to get involved in being the expert in their community?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, being from Boston, I think you're probably someone that also has a strong connection and passion for where you're from. And so, we feel the same way about Cleveland. We've always loved this city and wanted to contribute positively to what's going on here. We do things like buy supplies from local companies. Two in particular that we really love for just, higher end touches. We buy custom bars of soap from a local soap making company. They're just tiny little single size bars, but they custom wrap some of them for us. And, it certainly costs more than a bar of Dove soap at the grocery store, but it's a way to support a local business and also to give our guests a higher end experience. Same thing for our coffee. We work with a local coffee roaster, buy tons and tons of coffee from them. They have, I think when we first started, they weren't doing single serve, and they just did it just for us so we could put them in our units. And so, that's one of the way we try to support local companies. Obviously employing local people helps a lot. We employ a ton of local people. And we like to give money to charity at the end of the year too, in the local communities where we're operating. So we'll typically, pick like a local, what do you call it? Like local board of development or commerce or something like that, and support them. We encourage our employees to do the same. We actually give our employees a charitable giving stipend at the end of the year and make a gift on their behalf. And then in terms of just like relationships with the broader community, it's tough in a big city like this where there aren't, I don't know, I don't see a lot of great ways to get involved in the bigger picture, but one thing maybe I don't know if you've talked about legislation and regulations yet, but there's been a lot of talk of that in Cleveland. And because of our experience, we've been able to get involved and get in front of the local city councilmen to talk about what they're seeing as problems and what we think are the best solutions to that without shutting down a huge industry that's critically important to a city like Cleveland that really relies on tourism and the dollars it brings in. So I don't know. Anything I'm leaving out there, Mark?
I mean, as Dave mentioned, like at the beginning, I was renting out a room in my apartment, like kind of before we started our business. It's kind of how I started in the short-term rental space. And appealed to me about it was being able to share the experience of my city and what I love about my city with people that were coming in from all over the world. So, giving them a local's perspective on, on where to go, where to eat, what events to go to, all the parks, different stuff that you wouldn't know unless you ask somebody that's local. And so we've applied that to our co-hosting business, being the local experts as a tourism and hospitality company, that we want people who stay with us to, feel like they're getting a good local experience, that we're, like Dave mentioned, providing local supplies, local touches. If they have questions about, hey, like, what's going on this weekend? What can I do? We have like a list of events, different recommendations, festivals, whatnot, that we know because we're here. We're not, in a different state. Like, we are based here. We're passionate about this community. So, we've really embraced that, and, it's something we're pretty serious about.
Yeah, a lot of people will start a co-hosting business in a market that they operate in or that they have a short-term rental in, but maybe they don't live there. In the mastermind that I'm in, a lot of people are operating remotely, where it might be in Florida, the Smoky Mountains, Texas, whatever, where they don't live. And, I think it goes back to the why. Like, Mark, you were kind of touching upon that right there, and Dave obviously did too, but the why behind all of this, everyone has their own why. Like, why do you want to do what you're doing, right? That's kind of where you start when you want to launch a business. My why is different from your why. I frankly don't have any intention to grow a co-hosting business in Minnesota or Arizona or anything, because I'm not connected to those communities and I don't want to, even if it's a really good investment opportunity. Maybe if I invest out of state, I'll do it through a syndication or something, where I don't really have to have a deep connection to that community. But just like you guys, the communities in which we operate, we're there. Like, we don't live in any of the three that we're operating in, but we're there a lot, right? We intend to be here in Guilford, New Hampshire a lot. We're in Farmington a lot. We're in Provincetown enough that I could say that, we're there and we know the area. We're not locals to any of these places, but we're there. Our faces are there. The neighbors know us. Like, we know the community. We know the places to go. Very similar to what you guys have mentioned. And that goes back to my why as to why I want to do it. Like, I want to serve these communities that, we operate in, that we enjoy going to ourselves. I take great pride in, our places in Farmington, that we've had people that have moved to that same lake community after staying in our places, right? I think it's that's one of the coolest things in the world, that like somebody stayed there for a couple months. They were a neighbor's parents. The neighbor just had a child. It was our slow season, so I was able to rent it out consistently for a couple months, and they loved it so much they moved there. I was like, whoa, really? That's cool. Are you guys outside of Ohio that much? Like, are you operating in other markets, or is most of what you're doing Ohio?
No, we're all in Ohio. Our service area is basically within an hour of Cleveland. And it all goes back to what you were just talking about. This is our goal is to be the very best at what we do. And we feel like we need to be intimately familiar with the markets we're operating in to be able to do that. So it's all local. Our employees are all local people who know the area, know the properties. A big part of my role in the company is giving advice to people who are looking at investing in this area. And this is the only market I know well enough to feel comfortable giving that advice to people. And so, we've just seen, and this is what I say to everyone who's talking about remote investing and, investing in the Smokies from California and stuff, is that if you know a market well enough, there's plenty of opportunity. Every single market has its own little niches, its own little, reasons that people come there. And if you know the market well enough, you can identify those things and operate a successful short-term rental. So, consistent with our goal at being the absolute best at what we do, we've chosen not to expand beyond that radius, despite many, many inquiries asking us to do so.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, we went down to Florida, South Florida, like Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, because, we were curious about possibly expanding there. We were in Ohio, we're doing pretty well, but, everything we're reading, like hottest short-term rental market in the country is South Florida. And we're like, oh, okay. So we actually took a trip down there, looked at a bunch of houses, talked to people down there. And after that, we both came away with the feeling like we don't need to be here. Like, we don't need to operate here. For one thing, like, you mentioned, Jason, like making an impact in your community. When I think when we were there, it's like the last thing the world needs is another short-term rental operator in South Florida, because we're one of the only ones in Cleveland, at least of our size. There's 1,000 companies like ours in South Florida. And to go down there and try to start a whole new operation against like immense competition would have been a massive undertaking. And then we don't even know that market well. So, we came away with that. After that, we're like, let's just dominate here. Let's, 60-minute radius of Cleveland. Let's just dominate this market because we know it and we can be the experts. And, that's what we've done.
Yeah. It says a lot about, serving too many, what's the phrase? Too many people or whatever it is, like, where you
too many masters or something like that.
Too many masters. Yeah. You pick one strategy and stick with it. And even though, Dave has, 75 ideas that Mark reins in and finds the 10% that are good, it's not like you're going to all these different markets and taking business across the country. Even with that temptation early on, you mentioned you made a mistake early on with how little you were charging for furnishing a place. And we all kind of made those mistakes early on in, our business operations, whether it's in this space or something else. But, these are really basic, immutable laws of marketing, like being a first mover, like, really narrowing your focus, and, going deep into a market instead of just being like topsoil across a lot of markets. So that's interesting that you kind of have stuck to your guns there, and that, sometimes you'll do a fact-finding trip like you did to South Florida. And the big takeaway was, I don't think we want to do this. And then that probably saved you a lot of time and money as well. And you got some Florida sun out of it. I know you guys travel a lot too. I know, Mark, you've been down in South America a lot, I believe. But you guys took a trip that you told me about in Nashville, which just floored me. You rode your bikes from Cleveland to New York City through upstate New York, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Explain why one would want to do that.
Oh man, go ahead.
This was one of Dave's crazy ideas. So
this is the 10% that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So you see what we're dealing with there. It's like
right.
No, but yeah. The one day I remember he's like, dude, we should ride our bikes Cleveland, New York City. I was like, okay, like interesting. And he's like, we should actually just do a whole like triathlon. Like we should swim in Lake Erie, bike to New York City, and then run around the whole island of Manhattan. I was like, in the same day? He's like, no, we'd do it over like, a week or so. And so that's how it started. And, this appealed to me because, we're both endurance athletes. We both run pretty regularly. Dave's run a couple marathons. I've run a couple marathons, done a couple triathlons. So we're already kind of into this stuff. And there's a term called the masogi. I don't know if you've heard of it. Jesse Itzler uses it, but it's like, I think it's a Japanese term, but it's basically this one thing you put on your calendar every year that's like this massive goal or event that you define your whole year by. So he's like, let's make this our masogi that was 2020 at the time, because we talked about it at in like 2019 or so. And so we were going to do it in 2020, and then COVID happened. So we rescheduled the 2021, and yeah, we did it in September 2021. Ended up doing that triathlon. We had to do a little bit of a variation. So the initial plan was to swim, I think it was 2 miles in Lake Erie here in Cleveland. So we were going to swim 2 miles in the lake, get out of the lake, jump on our bikes, and then start going to New York. And that was the plan up until we got to like the day we were going to swim, and the weather was terrible, really windy, big waves, and we couldn't swim. And then the next day we were supposed to leave on the bike. So we ended up getting on the bike, making it to New York City in 8 days. And then we took a day off. And then the next day we did the loop, running for a little more than half of it and then walking the rest. But yeah, it's like 34 miles. So yeah, it was around the perimeter of Manhattan.
Okay.
I would say the bike was amazing. Like, it was awesome. Absolute blast. I wiped out like 30 miles into the 750-mile ride. Pretty bad. Had to get patched up. Yeah, it was pretty ugly. But after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing. And I mean, we had perfect weather, absolutely gorgeous scenery, especially like there's some parts in Pennsylvania and New York before you get to Buffalo that are just like along Lake Erie that are unbelievable. You have Lake Erie on one side and then wineries and vineyards on the other side. And it smells like grapes, Welch's grape juice as you're riding your bike. I mean, for 30 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Just beautiful. So, and then, yeah, from Buffalo to Albany.
Yep.
Albany.
That's not the town that we talked about that you can't pronounce, but
I'm not even going to try it.
you don't even try it.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Poughkeepsie is the name of that town.
Poughkeepsie.
Yes.
Yeah. There's the Empire State Trail goes from Buffalo to Albany.
Mm-hmm.
And we took that and then Albany to New York City, and it was great. But yeah, the run was then the day we ran, that was brutal. Like, that was absolutely brutal.
And we raised $4,000 for charity on the way too.
That's awesome. Rory, did you have your hand up? Are you going to say something?
No, I just lost
Okay.
the audio for a little bit, and I wasn't sure if other people did.
Well, I was going to say we should get these guys in Massachusetts to try to pronounce some of the names of our towns here. That would be hysterical. But that is an amazing story. And one thing that I will literally never put on my Facebook or LinkedIn profiles is endurance athlete. Like, I can guarantee that is never going to go up there. So all the credit for you guys for doing that. Besides like the physical endurance and the Welch's grape juice smells and the beauty of, the ride, like, what'd you learn about yourselves during that ride?
During the ride. I mean, look, for me, the big takeaway was actually that it was fun and we did something super cool, but I would have liked to take like twice as long to do it and actually like stop and smell the roses, enjoy some of the small towns in upstate New York. Speed and moving fast and doing big things is cool and important, but so is taking the time to slow down and enjoy life along the way. So I think Mark agreed with me on that. We'd both love to do something like that again, but probably take, at least 50% longer. Enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, we were like, I mean, it was literally bike, eat, sleep, repeat for 8 days. And yeah, I think, yeah, for me, yeah, we saw a lot of really, met a lot of amazing people and experienced a lot of generosity, like just people. So we, when people asked what we were doing, because we had like shorts on and stuff that said like, that showed us our route and stuff, like, what are you guys doing? We told them, and they would just give us $20, $40. Like, I remember it was the Dunkirk, New York. We had lunch at this little kind of shack, and the lady, like, we bought sandwiches, and she looked at our shirt. She's like, "What is that?" And told her. She's like, she opens up the cash register, gave us $40, just like right there. Like, that's so cool. Like, yeah, I think kind of just like overall perspective. Like, there's people are genuinely good. Like when you can kind of get out there and talk with them, or just get off the social media and just experience the real life. It's a little different, I think.
Yeah. Rory, what I find so fascinating here, I mean, these guys are successful business operators. They're really embedded in their community. They're not, they're not falling victim to the shiny object syndrome of another market or another thing to do. They're really staying the course with what they're doing. They literally stayed the course from Cleveland to New York, despite falling off a bike and other things that happened along the way. They did it. And I feel like you guys are just doing it without, a ton of fanfare. Maybe it's fanfare in your world because you live it every day and the people around you know it. But, from a national perspective, like, I think that your story is really cool. I think there's a lot of good stories like this out there. If you're listening to this, I would just give the advice of, not falling victim to somebody else's story and somebody else's life and somebody who's the influencer that you really need to, be sucked into like their world. Like, form your own path. Like, there's plenty of ways out there for you to improve your life, improve your family, improve your community, grow a great business, especially in a space like this. I mean, co-hosting short-term rentals has turned into, your big business opportunity, but it also kind of affords a lifestyle like you guys are leaving, instead of living a corporate job or behind a desk somewhere. I know, Dave, you're a trained attorney, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was an attorney in a former life, but gave that up.
See, Rory, I didn't tell you that. There's 2 attorneys here.
No, I mean, that's the right plan. I haven't given it up yet. No, I'm just doing other things alongside it.
Yeah, that's awesome too. Like, we were actually talking with some people at that at the conference in Nashville on the last night there, and we got to talking about the fact that the people that have the day jobs and the 9-to-5s can't wait to get out of them, and I think those people actually undervalue them. But then when you're out of it and you don't have that W-2 income, the point was just that there are certainly good and bad things to the day job, and I think they're what did I say, Mark? They're overvalued by the people that have them and undervalued by the people that don't have them, right? Or don't want them. And I think there's something to be said for both sides of that. So, at the conferences, everyone's talking about ditching the 9-to-5 and financial freedom and all that stuff. But I think it's too extreme of a viewpoint from my perspective.
Even in the realtor brokerage context, I coach my agents to use their W-2 as the catalyst, the leverage to get their career going, and to ignore anything that says just cut it off immediately and jump right in. It sounds romantic, it sounds exciting, but you leverage your W-2 until you
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I leveraged my W-2 for a number of our properties. This one actually, again, it was a DSCR loan, so it qualified based on, the numbers. But everything else was relying upon a W-2 income. Now that I don't have that, we need to figure out what the next chapter is going to be. But, just insight into what we're doing. Like, our plan for the rest of the year is really just to, operate the current properties we have more efficiently. I had this 10 and 10 year plan to buy 10 properties within the course of 10 years. And, we're about 6 years into it. We have 5 short-term, 1 not short-term. And, I don't really want to buy anything else this year because I really want to dig a little bit deeper into what we currently have, and then we'll reevaluate next year. But I want to get to our final questions. I did have one other thing, though. And, I've only seen Dave a couple times in person. He's always got this fun shirt on. I wore my fun shirt for you.
Oh,
and
well, we got these new hoodies.
Yeah, look at that.
They're brand new, and I was pretty excited about it, so I had to wear it today.
You got the merch on. I actually have merch too. Like, I got like logoed gear. It's just sitting over there, and I recorded a couple of videos yesterday with my hat on, and I'm gonna turn into a sweatshirt right after we stop recording this. But I see Dave as the fun shirt guy at the conferences, but you're probably not that the rest of your life.
Yeah, it depends. Maybe we can just have like a fun shirt show here.
Yeah.
Days.
Did you guys launch your podcast? Like, we were talking about that a couple weeks ago.
We've recorded 2 episodes. I think they just got done being edited, so we're hopefully gonna push publish on them in the next day or two. So we can give you a link.
Can't wait. We will link that up in the show notes as well. And as you guys get on more podcasts and get a little bit more visibility, I know you've been on the Short Term Show or whatever, Avery
Luke
Carl's podcast.
Yeah,
you guys did a good job there. Maybe we'll be seeing you a little bit more on the national stage, with podcasts like this now that you're, kind of dipping your toe into the space.
Yeah, I'll talk to our agent.
Talk to Mark if it's a good idea. So we asked 3 questions of everybody that comes on the podcast as a way to wrap things up and just to, get to know you a little bit better. We got 2 of you here, so, I'll ask the questions for each one of you. The first one is, if you can get on stage for a half an hour and talk about any subject in the world with 0 preparation, what would that be?
Well, investing in short-term rentals in Cleveland wouldn't take me much preparation. That's kind of the cop-out answer.
That's good. Maybe Mark's got a different answer.
Travel, for sure. Particularly international travel.
Yeah, you were telling me that you were out of the country when COVID started to hit too.
Yeah, I was in Australia.
Yeah,
that's what
Well, it was fun. Like, maybe I should go home right now situations.
Pretty much, yeah. It was either get out now or be stuck in Australia.
Or become Australian, which is not a bad thing. Second question for each of you. Tell us something that happened early in your life or career that impacts the way that you're working today.
I'm going to punt to Mark first.
So when I was working full-time in the corporate world, I became a manager at a pretty young age. So I was working at a manufacturing company here in Cleveland, manufacturing medical devices. I was 25 and I became manager of a team of people that was mostly double my age and, kind of with no management experience at all. And my boss at the time, I had no idea what I was doing, and the team I took over was in rough shape. It needed a little work to get it to a better performing unit. And, I came in thinking, I know everything and, I'm going to get these guys going, and just flopped, absolutely flopped, getting pushed back. These guys are like, who's this kid trying to tell me what to do? My boss, Brian, who's a good friend of mine, and I consider him a mentor now. He gave me a book called Extreme Ownership and completely changed, the way I view pretty much the world, and especially leadership though. From that point, my leadership style changed, how I communicate changed, and I just learned a whole lot about, getting people to row in the same way. And, it's not about just coming in and saying, hey, you need to do this. Like there's ways you need to motivate people. Different people respond to different modes of communication, in different ways. Like, so yeah, that was a pretty massive change. And, from that, just with that team specifically, within a year, became one of the best performing teams in the company, completely changed the whole culture of the team. And, I think that's flowed into our current business. And, so that was pretty big for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dave, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna different approach to this one. I'd say getting talked into joining a fraternity in my freshman year of college actually had a lot of implications for me, I think. In high school, I was not like a super social or popular guy. So joining that fraternity actually helped me develop a lot of social skills that have been really valuable to me in my life and career. And then also through that fraternity, I got to attend a leadership and entrepreneur retreat over spring break one year, and just met a lot of small business owners who were living the type of life and running the types of businesses that I wanted to do. So really opened my eyes to entrepreneurship and the life and lifestyle that can afford. So that was sort of the beginning of my journey down that path. So,
you want to shout out your frat?
no, it's okay.
Okay. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Wittenberg in Springfield, Ohio, which is
Okay.
a small private school an hour west of Columbus.
And they have fraternities there. Okay.
It's all they had.
Yeah. I was not a product of the fraternity system, so a lot of what you learned there, I probably had to learn, elsewhere. But love both those answers. Final question: tell us something you're listening to, or watching, or reading these days. Anything in the world.
Well, I'll just go. Favorite book in the hospitality space is the Disney book, Be Our Guest. It is sort of my hospitality Bible. We forced our team to read it along with us. And we would review a chapter every week at our weekly meetings. So that is just, I'm not reading it now, but that's favorite book. So, and right now, actually, I'm reading a book called Made. It is, I don't know if you're familiar with this. I think they made a TV series out of it, but it's written by a lady who was, single mother working as a minimum wage maid in the Seattle area. And, I picked that one up just because I thought it would be a way for me to understand and relate better to some of the people that work for us. And so it's been a really eye-opening thing about what it's like to work some of these types of jobs and to live on minimum wage, just trying to make it from paycheck to paycheck. I think we pay our cleaning team way better than minimum wage, but it's just sort of a way to relate to this, relate to the team better.
Two great suggestions that we have not heard yet on this podcast. All right, Mark, bring it home. It's not going to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Or it's not going to be the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yeah, I kind of my reading interests have changed over the years. Like, I used to listen to and read to a lot of business books, development books, and I still do. But more recently, my reading has been more like I said, I like to travel, and so I just finished reading a book called The Wayfinders, which is about some specific indigenous cultures in the world, and about how they have evolved and live in kind of a modern world. So pretty interesting. Probably a different answer than maybe you're expecting. So that's what I just finished reading right now. Although I will say, going off the extreme ownership book, as a team, Dave talked about the hospitality Be Our Guest. We've done this again with extreme ownership. So we've kind of made it a Host Pros book club, and we're just finishing up the audiobook for extreme ownership. And every week in our team meeting, we go through a chapter, and it's really, I think I find it pretty helpful. I think our team enjoys the conversation it leads to. It kind of takes us down some different paths that we probably wouldn't be discussing if we weren't talking about the book and the chapters in it. So I think it kind of gets everyone thinking on the same page. And I think something we're going to continue doing as a team, different books for different reasons. So
astute worldly, is it Ohioans? Is that title?
Yeah.
Ohioans? Yeah. These astute worldly Ohioans. I mean,
yeah.
Rory, I legit had the lamest answers to those questions. Like, the current answer is I watched the Celtics lose last night. We watch a lot of PJ Masks. The new one that just came out on Disney Plus. We don't read Disney books. We watch Disney Plus because of Cecily. And then I just, turn on way too much political news. So, that's just, that's how we're all different.
Stay away from that.
I know.
We're big sports fans as well. The Cavs play the Knicks tonight, so they got to win. So we'll be tuned into that for sure.
Well, maybe by the time this comes out, because this is going to come out in June, maybe the Cavs will have won it all by then. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah.
Hey, this is great. We could probably go on forever, but we'll put a bow on it right there, and we'll have to have you guys back after you've done your latest endurance race, in some other direction, and once Host Pros has grown even bigger and better than it is right now. But, I love hanging out with you guys at the conferences. I hope that we could do it again, in person somewhere. Maybe we'll come to visit you guys. Let us know if you're ever out our way, or maybe we'll just converge on a conference again. Where can people learn more about Dave and Mark from Host Pros?
Well, we've got a website. It's hostproscle.com. We've got an Instagram account. It's called Host Pros. And I think we're both on Instagram too, if you just search our names.
Mm-hmm. We will put all that stuff in the show notes. People can link out and reach out to you guys if they want to learn more about anything that you're doing, anything they've heard on this podcast, or about your business. Rory, where can people reach out to you?
The best way to find me are through my real estate businesses, my real estate brokerage, Next Home Titletown, that's nexthometitletown.com, or my law practice, Urban Village Legal, that's urbanvillagelegal.com.
All right. And if you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you can give us a great rating wherever you're listening to it. If you want to leave a comment below, if you're watching this on YouTube, we read all those and respond to them. If you want to email me directly, my contact information is jason@nexthometitletown.com. If you'd like to be a guest in the podcast, have questions for us, questions for Dave or Mark, we could pass those along as well. And that's it. That's another great episode of the Real Estate Law Podcast. Mark, Dave, we really appreciate your being here. Thanks for indulging us on the origin of your business and some of the great work that you guys are doing. And, we wish you guys the best. If you want to grow your profile, we wish you the best with that. If you want to keep doing what you're doing, slow, steadily, and, owning your market, I really applaud you guys for doing that. And, we wish you the best of that too.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It was great catching up, and appreciate the time.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next one.
This has been the Real Estate Law Podcast. Because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. We're powered by Next Home Titletown, Greater Boston's progressive real estate brokerage. More at nexthometitletown.com. And Urban Village Legal, Massachusetts Real Estate Counsel, serving savvy property owners, lenders, and investors. More at urbanvillagelegal.com. Today's conversation was not legal advice, but we hope you found it entertaining and informative. Discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com. Thank you for listening.